Standing by. Blaine, who is your latest interview?
Dee, thank you very much indeed. Well, this election's actually kicked off on the 27th of April, Freedom Day, when people were voting in our foreign missions, about 121 foreign missions, South Africa's foreign missions. But the IEC officials are no doubt still hard at work as they prepare the country to go to the polls when the majority of the country go to the polls. Remember, special votes took place from yesterday and will end today at 5 p.m. There are about 189,000 volunteers that have been recruited and trained by the IEC to make sure that these elections go off without a hitch. Let's find out more and bring in the vice chairperson of the IEC, Commissioner Janet Love. Ms. Love, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Let's talk about special votes so far. We know cutoff is happening at about 5 p.m. today.
That's correct.
How's it been so far over the last couple of days?
Look, given that we are operating in nearly 23,000 voting stations, the incidents where we've had some glitches are very few and far between, and we're really pleased with how things have gone. We always regard special voting days as something of a build-up and a testing of systems and so on. And fortunately, the processes that occur over the special voting period are subject to very careful verification processes, and we therefore learn a lot. But I think from the security point of view, we've been very happy with some of the arrangements that have been in place. From the logistical point of view, in most instances, things have gone really smoothly, and we hope things improve as we move along today.
I'm not sure if you saw this video that's been doing its rounds from yesterday with what looks like ballot boxes on the side of the road. Can you confirm the authenticity of that video and what's it all about?
Okay, so there are a few videos that have been doing the rounds, and that particular video clip has been reported, and it is something that is being investigated. There were ballot boxes that were unused ballot boxes that were cast on the side of the road. It's the perpetrators who've been involved in that. There is an investigation underway, and a case has been opened. Fortunately, that was an incident which didn't involve any compromising of people who've been in the voting process, but we are following that up. And similarly, we've had a situation where people accosted some of the electoral officials and tore up some ballot papers that had not been used. But I mean, these are things that, as I say, have been really exceptional in these elections, and we hope we don't even have any exceptions today.
The ballot boxes apparently at the side of the road. Do you know the possible motive for this? I know you said investigations are still ongoing.
I wouldn't like to speculate too much on the motives, but I think it's in most of these instances, it's a combination of three things. One is where you have people whose anger in relation to service delivery and so on has spilt over into finding it very difficult to embrace the fact that everybody has got the right to vote, and that should be encumbered, and nobody should obstruct that. And their anger around other things sometimes spills over. I think the second thing is that you have people who are definitely intent on causing mischief and raising issues that in a way attempt to create concern and create questions about a very important process to all of us, heightening the anxiety. And then I think the third kind of video that goes around is because people identify things that need to be identified, and we need to be made aware of them, and we respond to those as expeditiously and quickly as we can.
You would understand that when people see things like this, question marks goes up with regards to credibility and fairness of the elections. Obviously, the IEC wants to obviate any questions, I know with regards to the transparency of the process, political parties are on an ongoing basis kept up to date with regards to removing these questions at the end of of the process. With regards to transportation of ballots and ballot boxes, what's the rules? Are they always, these vehicles, are they always accompanied by security or South African police services?
The South African police services and security are to accompany all of those materials, but some of the materials, and certainly when it comes to the voting process, to the home visits and so on, and when it comes to rolling back ballots and storing ballots that have been filled. But sometimes there are incidents that take place where, as I've indicated, electoral officials are accosted on the way and so on. And so there have been, in the incident that you've mentioned, an exception to the rule. But it is an exception. And as I say, there have been a couple more. But we're hoping that in each and every case, we first of all make sure that the local party liaison committees are brought on board, that we're able to make sure that the concerns that are raised are addressed, and as far as possible that they have no impact on the actual process and certainly not on the results.
You have no doubt a lot on your plate. I was just looking at some of the numbers. You've got, 60 million ballots that have been printed and distributed, over 300,000 ballot boxes, 45,000 voting compartments. The list goes on. There's 26.7 million potential voters that could go to the polls, majority of which will go to the polls tomorrow, hopefully. If you had to look at the trends over the past couple of years and talk to turnout, what's your best educated guess?
Look, we've been incredibly fortunate in South Africa, where we don't have compulsory registration, we don't have compulsory voting, and yet our turnout for registration has been a turnout that, if you compare against the National Population Register, has been over 70%, and the turnout of those who've registered has always been in the high 70s. Our aim is clearly for it to be beyond 80%, and we're hoping to make that mark. But again, it's something that we recognize. There are areas where we see things that we learn from one election to another. We see and attend to things as we can. And certainly when it comes to interventions that need to take place, not just in preparation in the weeks before an election, but over a long period of time around young voters, that is something that we're certainly going to be moving into in a much bigger way with partners.
The addresses for the voters' roll, I know that has preoccupied the Commission over the past, 3 years or so. We know that from the last statement issue that you are about 85% with regards to getting full addresses. How do you plan to make up the numbers? I understand that voters who have not captured their results will be asked to do so before they issue the ballot if they're going to vote tomorrow.
That's correct. So we don't want to disenfranchise anybody. So when voters come to a voting station, if they present themselves and they're identified as people about whom we don't have adequate address details or no address details, before we can issue them with a ballot paper in keeping with the ruling of the court, we will require them to give us their addresses. This doesn't mean that they need formal proof of address. It just means that they need to provide the address. We need to satisfy ourselves that they're in the right province, and once we've done that, and this is of course in the presence of party agents, we will then be able to issue them with their ballot papers, and they'll be able to vote. And that information that we capture, in a way harvest from these voting processes, will be information that we will then capture into our overall system, so that we increasingly perfect the voters' roll as we are intent on doing.
I just want to talk about if somebody registered for a special vote but couldn't make it on Monday and Tuesday, are they still allowed to vote tomorrow?
Yes. So if you've registered for a special vote, we expect you, and you are listed to cast your vote on a special voting day. If you haven't made that application, you cannot go. But if for whatever reason you were unable to turn up on your special voting day, you can producing, obviously you have to be in the right province, because that's why you made the application in the first place. You have to be there and you have to be able to cast your ballot in that way. But you can, yes.
That's great. Look, we've got a record number of political parties contesting the national elections. We understand 48 political parties, a longer ballot paper. I want to talk about some of the innovation with regards to the ballot paper, but with regards to having this 48 parties contesting, what sort of challenges does that pose to the IEC?
Well, for somebody like me, it just poses one challenge, is I can't remember them all. But aside from that, no, on a more serious note, look, there were some logistical challenges, because when you've got a longer ballot paper, our furniture, our voting booths were not designed to accommodate a very, very big ballot paper. So it does mean that people are going to have to be a little bit more patient, unrolling and, locating their party on the ballot paper. I think the second thing is that because it's a bigger size, it means that our ballot boxes, we needed to increase the number of ballot boxes. And when you increase the number of ballot boxes, you need to increase the number of ballot seals, and so on and so forth. And, that's got its ripple effect right along the system.
Yeah. And just very quickly before we go, the innovations of the ballot paper, what sort of innovations this time around?
Well, first design to accommodate the 48 in the case of the national ballot. But secondly, also we responded quite closely to some research that was done in relation to the layout of the ballot, and ensuring that the party logo and the place where you put your mark are most closely associated, and the individual from the party and the full name of the party is more to the left-hand side. And secondly, as usual, our ballot paper, the printing, have got a number of security features embedded in order to make sure that we don't have any people attempting to defraud us.
And for the visually impaired?
We've got the UBT, and the universal ballot is at all the voting stations. It's something that we've had, as you know, in previous elections. Of course, in this instance, we've had to have 10 different UBTs, one for the national ballot and one for each of the 9 provinces. And the ballot paper slides into the UBT, and those people who are able to use Braille are then able to cast their ballot without needing to have individual assistance around them.
Janet Love, thank you very much indeed.
No
doubt you have your work cut out for you. Thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thanks for being here.
And all the best. There you go. There's about 189,000 volunteers that will be working tirelessly day and night, burning the midnight oil like us journalists, Desiree, to make sure that this elections is covered fully, as well as it goes off without a hitch. For now, it's back to studio.